I know I need to incorporate AI into my outbound strategy, but there are literally thousands of tools and I don't have a damn clue where to start. Well, if you're a sales leader that's had that thought, stay tuned for our next guest, Anshul Gupta, the co-founder of Actively AI. He gives you a peek into the brain of an AI founder and drops gems on how to tackle your AI strategy coming up next. A friend of mine, someone I met in real life about a year ago at a conference in Austin, Anshul Gupta, the co-founder of Actively. Anshul, how are you doing today?
Good, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Always pumped to hang out online with people that you know in person. I'm really excited about our topic today. How does AI fit into modern pipe gen and execution? I think it's something that if you're a sales leader like me and our audience, it's something you probably think about at least once a day, every single day. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
For sure. Thanks. So I'm Anshul, one of the co-founders of Actively AI. By way of background, was a former AI researcher. Both me and my co-founder have been in this space since GPT-1 and GPT-2. Didn't really do much, and it's very cool to see all the progress that's come out since, and being on the sort of leading edge of that. And so with Actively, our vision is sort of what we call a pipe gen machine, and our broad vision on kind of the future of business in general is that different agents are going to work in the background. We call them sort of agentic or human in the loop machines that are going to help dictate, by processing all this information, what humans, what sales reps, or customer success or marketing should focus on every day, and do a lot of the kind of manual work and automate that to make individuals much more efficient. And so we're specifically focused on pipeline generation, and double clicking within that, helping sales reps and go-to-market teams every single day know which accounts to focus on, finding the right people within them, developing a POV or a reason or research as to why to engage the account and contact now. And then last but not least, also drafting the outbound content to be incredibly relevant so that you can focus your day on tasks that humans are best at, whether it's calling, LinkedIn, meeting folks at events like you and I did, those sorts of more higher value, higher leverage tasks. And the machine behind the scenes is sort of pointing you at, this is who you should focus on and why, by processing all the data.
Yeah, man, if I had a dollar for every time I heard or saw someone say AI is replacing salespeople, we wouldn't be here today. I'd be retired. But I want to dig in there. Having someone like yourself that founded an AI company, at least selfishly, like I want to dig into your brain a little bit more. I guess tell me why you're excited and why salespeople like myself should be excited about AI introducing itself into the sales world.
For sure. And so I think as part of, if you look at why has AI in sales become such a hot topic, obviously with the sort of kind of advent and democratization of and progress of large language models, you can do a lot of things that you couldn't do before, right? So now we can generate text, right, and information in a really solid way at a high rate, right? Generative AI is where that kind of term arises out of. We can process tons of unstructured, disparate kinds of data as well, and then also now, right? And this is where you mentioned the whole AI SDR concept. You can now execute actions, right? When you kind of pair the LLMs with sort of agent workflows, right? And I think to your point, a lot of the interest or immediate applications have been in kind of fully AI SDRs, right? And we have a fundamentally different view, which is sort of a cyborg sales reps, because there's things that machines do really well, right? Which is process all of that data, and there's things that humans do really well that machines don't. And so our view, I would say, is a little bit different than a lot of the noise that you hear, and we're seeing anecdotally when you compare a rep who uses kind of a co-pilot or something like Actively AI versus an AI SDR. AI SDR might just spam your entire TAM and get you meetings really quickly, but from a sustained value point of view, the human generally outperforms.
Let's stay there because I like what you said around the cyborg versus the AI SDR. I think a lot of sales leaders are hesitant and fearful of, kind of ruining lead lists and spamming your TAM. But we also know, like, I got to figure out how the hell to put this into my tech stack. I know I need it. I know it can create efficiency. I know it can help my people become better, right? I think at the end of the day, to me, one of the root values AI brings is it's going to make people better. Maybe share a little bit about Actively specifically. Like, tell us a little bit more about, like, if I'm a sales leader, I'm going to integrate a tool like Actively into my sales strategy. What does that actually look like? What is it actually doing for the rep? How's it actually changing their day to day?
For sure. So if you were to sit down with one of Brian, one of your SDRs over at Ambition and just say, here, what do you do for the 40 weeks? Let me just shadow you. What you're going to find is that 10, 15, sometimes even 20 hours are spent on all of these, what I call kind of upstream and important, but kind of manual and time consuming tasks, right? That don't relate directly to engaging with prospects. It's which account should I focus on because a company like Ambition has a large TAM. It's finding the right people, right? Whether that's mining through your Salesforce or going to Zoom Info and LinkedIn. It's figuring out a point of view or doing the research on why I should engage that account. Maybe we've been in touch with them in the past and the timing didn't work out, right? And so perhaps you have to go back and review the gong call transcripts or the back and forth emails or the closed loss notes, right? Or maybe it's a pure cold account and you have to see, well, do they look like similar customers? What initiatives can I tie into? And then ultimately drafting the email, right? And so we've had a bunch of companies come to us who actually sat down with their SDRs and found that number is 15 to 20 hours a week. And they're like, my ideal world is if those contacts and prospects that are the best, most timely ones to focus on could be teed up for my SDR in the morning when they wake up. And even the message is drafted and pretty relevant. And my SDR can focus on the phone, personalized LinkedIn, video outreach, those sorts of higher leverage tasks. Then that's the ideal scenario. And that's exactly what Actively is aiming to achieve. And so it lives within Salesforce and Outreach. It plugs into your entire disparate technology stack, and it's processing all the information in the background because that's what your best SDRs do anyways. They just take tons of time to do it.
Yeah, I think when you see tools like Actively or really any type of piece of software, it's integrated within, it's living in the ecosystem that your reps already exist. It's not another tool on top of that and another tab, at the top of your computer screen. What are, I'm always curious about this, and I know you've probably been on plenty of calls where you're speaking to sales leaders with some of these challenges. What are some of the challenges that you see sales teams face when trying to integrate AI into their top of funnel strategy, and how do they actually overcome them? Like, what are some roadblocks when you're trying to get, a buyer to action on Actively?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is not specific to Actively, but this is more generally where because AI in sales has gotten so hot, a lot of sales teams are taking a more, what I would say, reactive approach, which is, hey, AI in sales is hot. I see all these posts on LinkedIn. Let's go make a purchase in the space, right? Rather than peeling back the onion and really understanding specifically for their pipe gen motion, what kind of problems are they looking to solve? And so what we recommend prospects is actually a framework by Jimmy Chen, who's the director of sales development over at Sigma Computing. You should definitely get him to join one of your podcasts. But he has this framework called MAT, which is the 4 levers of how do you actually improve pipeline generation. And it kind of is all encompassing. And so the framework MAT stands for messaging, activity, timing, and targeting, right? And so across those 4 prongs, you look at where can we actually see the most room for improvement and making sure there's no trade-offs, right? So like there's an obvious trade-off, which is, okay, well, if I spend a lot more time getting better at messaging, maybe I can do less activity. Our goal actively is how can you push companies to the frontier across all 4 without a trade-off between one or another? And so I think that framework is really clarifying when you're looking at what are avenues to actually improve our outbound pipe gen motion, and that gives you a framework of how you should actually evaluate AI tools. If you think you're pretty good at messaging, you maybe don't need a tool that specifically is helping you pump out all these different versions of emails, right? If you think you're good at targeting, then maybe you don't need like a scoring or prioritization engine. But generally, we see there's obviously always room for improvement across those 4 prongs.
Yeah, I love that real world example. And like, it's funny, something you said, about a year, it rings a bell, about a year and a half ago. And even to this day, you have the whole like quality versus quantity debate. And I've always been a person that thinks, I think you can have both. Like, I think Yes, we need to personalize and we need to do those things, but you can also deliver high quality outreach at scale. Like just because you're personalizing doesn't mean you can't still hit high activity numbers and
100%.
yeah, to like what you're saying, like AI is a tool that's going to help you do that. Um, let's dig in. Can you give examples of maybe some of your customers around how tools like yours and others are transforming the top of funnel sales motion and actually being used to enhance lead gen? Like how are companies out there like actually delivering results?
Yeah, so we're fortunate to work with a number of the fastest growing SaaS and tech companies out there like Ramp, Verkada, JustWorks, Ironclad to name a couple. And they're seeing really tangible impacts in terms of, JustWorks over the past few months of using Actively has seen an increase of sales qualified opportunities per SDR by 25%, which is, obviously a really meaningful gain. And what's the reason why? It's because they're sitting on these companies that have been doing outbound for years are sitting on a lot of gold in their CRM that's really difficult to mine, right? And because it's living across your entire technology stack, years of interactions, and one of the just the realities of sales development is it's a very transient function, right? Or as a job role, right? With engineering, you have engineers that are in that role for 5 years. There's very few SDRs that have been SDRs at the same company for 5 years because there's constant turnover. Because if you're really good, you're getting promoted. You're not so good, maybe you're getting let go. Regardless, maybe you get moved between mid-market, enterprise, SMB. You keep shifting account books, and so the continuity or the lack of continuity, I should say, is actually a really big challenge for sales development teams. Imagine, right? You mentioned a real-world example. Imagine, you're a sales rep in Ambition trying to sell sales coaching software to a prospect, and they mentioned just now that, hey, we're switching from HubSpot to Salesforce, and so we're focused on that migration. So let's reconnect in 8 to 12 months once that migration is done, right? But at that point in time, it probably doesn't make sense to load in Ambition and run a sales cycle if I'm moving CRMs. But let's say that sales rep, right, who maybe was diligent and put notes into or a calendar invite. Let's say that sales rep then got promoted to a senior account executive, right, in the enterprise segment and no longer owns that account. You're not bringing a new rep in who hopefully has that account in their book and does all of that diligence throughout the 500 accounts they own to pick up that signal. That's really unlikely, and the timing matters, especially if you're in a competitive market, right? Because maybe they were in a contract with your competitor that was coming up, et cetera. And so having a system behind the scenes that's always on, always mining through this information gives your pipeline function continuity that you otherwise wouldn't have with folks coming in and out, right, every single week, right, or month.
Yeah, it's like signals is something that's really top of mind for a lot of people right now too. And like when you have an outbound motion, right, you have a team of humans that are speaking to leaders at your target accounts directly. Like there's
Yeah.
no more valuable piece of information than that first party understanding, because that VP of sales that maybe didn't take a meeting told you that they're migrating CRMs and gave you a timeline. And like if you lose that, like you said, you have gold existing already. Like that information is so powerful.
Yeah, and really quickly, piggybacking off that gold or that pool continues to get bigger every day because you have more and more SDRs and reps who are on the phone, every connect, every email response, every opportunity they're opening and closing. That pool is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger as time passes.
Yeah. What are we're gonna pivot here a little bit. Let's stay in the how it's impacting lead gen. Let's stay how it's impacting customer engagement. But what are some other softwares maybe outside of Actively or other like parts of AI that you're really excited about that help people create that personalized experience at scale without losing the human touch? Like what are you excited about in the AI world right now when it comes to that?
It's a really good question. I can maybe start off with what I'm not excited about, and then get into what I'm excited about. And so I think, like, just as you mentioned, there's the quality versus quantity age old debate. I think the other age old debate when we talk about content is relevance versus personalization. And so we're fortunate now to have so much data based off all the kind of customers that we work with, and we see that relevance really outperforms personalization, right? Rather than, and personalization is what a lot of these kind of newer chat GPT wrapper AI tools are focused on. And they'll say something like, hey, Brian, saw you live in Memphis, right? Or saw you live in Nashville, right? How about X, Y, and Z about that city? Have you been to this restaurant? Or, hey, saw you grew up in Buffalo. Thoughts on the Bills this season? By the way, I'm Anshul from Actively, right? And so that kind of idea of personalization, I think the first couple times I got emails like that, I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. They took the time, right, to look something up about me. But those strategies obviously decay once you democratize democratize that ability for everyone. And so I think that relevance-based approach and any tools or techniques that can help you actually really understand, okay, if I'm trying to prospect ambition, what are the challenges that ambition is likely facing right now, given what I know about them, given what I know about their market, maybe on their hiring page, they're looking for specific positions or specific roles, and utilizing that to say, hey, Brian, saw you're hiring, right, someone for XYZ position, probably means that ABC matters to you. We help other sales technology companies like Orem and Salesforce do X, Y, and Z. That's probably going to be a lot more relevant or interesting rather than someone trying to get you or kind of bite you into a meeting by also acting like they're a fellow Buffalo Bills fan, right?
Yeah, I think that the personalization thing is this, this skid mark from 5-6 years ago that's still running its course. And I think you and I and a lot of our audience, when you're selling to sales leaders, they can smell it a mile away.
Exactly.
So like, I appreciate that, but yeah, I don't have time to chit chat about the Bills in Nashville and Memphis. But if you know that I'm struggling with this thing right now and you can help me in the moment, right? Like relevant in timing, right? When it's
Yeah.
relevant and the timing is perfect. Yep. Sometimes I'm not even thinking. The same way my brain is processing those terrible emails that within a second I know, all right, this is an automated email from somebody.
Delete.
I can process it in the right way.
Yeah.
And I may not even think about what, but I know if that problem is top of mind right now and relevant, I don't need to, right? Because that person clearly
Exactly.
knows something about my world. So I really like you kind of calling out how do we find AI that helps us be relevant? Because yeah, I think there's a lot of just fluff out there right now with the personalized piece. And then don't get me wrong, if you can combine both, even better. But
Best of both worlds. Yep.
yeah, if we're prioritizing, let's prioritize relevance over personalization. I stand with you there. What are we've talked a little bit about buying. I think in my opinion, the market is caught up with regular software in terms of buying. No longer is the day of you get $30 million in funding and you get to go buy all the fancy tools on the shelf. Like we definitely have companies that are smarter at buying, but buying AI, what are some mistakes companies may make? Like maybe their tech stack isn't there yet. Maybe they're not mature enough. Like what are some mistakes people should avoid when it comes to buying AI? Like when are they not ready to actually buy AI?
That's a great question. I think especially in new markets, right, where there's a lot of noise and crowding and interest, right, because the potential value is so high, right? If you actually purchase a tool that makes a real impact, like Ramp and Just for Stun, it actually makes a really meaningful impact on your top line, helps you grow faster, hit your goals, gets everyone paid more. It's a win-win-win. But I think one of the big challenges in a competitive or noisy market is if you just believe what kind of the marketing or the messaging is around the value rather than actually implementing and trying it out. And so I think the way that we've been able to cut through a lot of the noise is offering a very low lift pilot. And I think sales leaders should effectively demand that as a kind of precursor to purchasing tools, right? So one that actually integrates with your system rather than a sandbox environment, so you can see how does it actually perform live, get real feedback from users, collect data, collect metrics. And I think in the scenario that you don't do that, and of course it's a vendor's best interest to not necessarily provide that, right? Because they just want to close the deal, get you hooked in, and then they'll worry about it right at renewal. But I think that is really the best way to de-risk a purchase.
Hey man, I'm a free sample guy. Yeah,
Exactly.
if they're willing to give me a free sample, I bet you it's pretty good, right? And if they're not,
Yeah.
yeah, you have that second thought. I'm a big believer in proofs of concept and pilots as well. I think outside of your pretty transactional pieces of software that you need, like, yeah, I like the word you said. Buyers should demand it. because you don't want to make that mistake. I'm going to throw a curveball at you. We're talking a lot about AI right now, right? And AI, where it's come. 2 years from now, so end of 2025, 2026, what's AI in sales going to look like?
That's a great question. It's something that we think about every day. I think it's continuing to eat more and more of the workflow and getting to the vision that I, as a rep, wake up every single day. I know exactly what to do. I have any manual work that can be automated is automated. I'm focused in the right places, and I'm spending my day on maximizing my 8 hours, 9 hours a day that I work in conversations or attempting to get into conversations with prospects. And so that's very far away from where the majority of companies are today, because of how much that has to happen between where we are today and where you actually execute on the vision. Because even with the new AI tools and technology that purport to do that, they can maybe only do it for kind of some categories of leads, or they can, there's still a lot of manual oversight where you have to review what the machine is outputting. And so that, I think, is kind of the future state of what this looks like. And I think a 2-year time frame is pretty reasonable. We're obviously trying to beat that clock because of how quickly things are moving and how much excitement there is. But that's sort of what I would say. I'm curious if you have a similar viewpoint.
Yeah, well, you're my crystal ball into the AI future, so that's why I asked that. But no, I do think it's ever evolving so fast, and we're seeing it ways it kind of transforms the way buyers and sellers communicate. It's hard to keep up, and I think if you're like me, you struggle sometimes, right? Like, geez, am I behind? Like, what's the cost of inaction? So,
right.
Thinking about staying ahead of the curve is something that's difficult when I'm not even on the curve yet, or am I? You know what I mean? I don't think, like, everyone understands you got Salesforce and you got Outreach or Sales Off and you got your Zoom infos and your gongs, but like all of the tools outside.
What's next?
Yeah, I think it's wild. Anshul, how do people, if they want to learn more about Actively or AI, how do people get a hold of you?
www.actively.ai. You could also try prospecting me, but thankfully my cell phone number is incorrect on Zoom info, so I'm not as bombarded as I would otherwise be. Hopefully Zoom info doesn't listen to this. But yeah, we're on LinkedIn website. We have a lot of content as well. And yeah, very excited to just share learnings from what the most successful outbound companies are doing and how we're a small part of that picture.
Anshul, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit of your wisdom on AI to us salespeople that just want to learn.